Hello, and welcome back to Single and Strong, the podcast that creates a safe space for South Asian single parents to find support, share their stories, and discover strength in each other. I'm your host, Annabelle Aryan Igam, and today we have an incredibly powerful and inspiring guest with us. This episode is one of transformation, courage, and the strength to overcome even the most difficult of circumstances. Today, we're talking to Mala Patel, a single mum of two, one of whom is on the autism spectrum. Her story involves the breakdown of her marriage due to her husband's addiction, which led to financial and emotional turmoil. But through it all, she found the strength to leave the toxic situation and build a successful new life for herself and her children. She now has a thriving career and works to help other women who have faced similar challenges. Marla, welcome to the podcast. We are so grateful to have you with us today.
Hi, Annabelle. Lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting
Amazing.
me.
Of course. So, as I said, we're so glad you're here, but let's start at the beginning of your journey. I can only really imagine how challenging it must have been for you balancing everything while dealing with a marriage that wasn't working for you. Can you take us back to a time when you realized your marriage was falling apart, and how did that impact you both mentally and financially?
It is a little while now. And going back there again, it feels so different to the life that I lead now. But then, yeah, I felt as though I just lost myself in the whole of the situation where obviously I had two children as well, and I think the emotional support, the support itself, I just felt I wasn't getting that from my husband. There was a lot of toxic sort of like, when we speak to each other, it wasn't in a loving sort of way. It was just, obviously he was going through some of his issues, which I didn't know about, and he didn't talk to me about, and I was going through mine. We just didn't have that communication. And I think that's where it sort of started to build. I didn't know how to express my needs, and he didn't know how to tell me he's going through all of this. Things for him were difficult, but I didn't know that. And we just sort of started living separate lives. I was with the kids and he was doing what he was doing. And then we got ourselves into a real financial issues with losing our house and everything that we've built, but I wasn't aware of any of that as well, so it kind of just escalated into what do we do, like, and I just felt I wasn't in the right space myself, but also I just didn't feel that support and love, or what am I going to do with being here with him. So yeah, it's just started to take its toll that way.
And how did that affect you? I mean, mentally, did you feel strained, down, health wise, physically? Did it kind of affect you in those ways?
Yeah, all of those, yes. Um, Especially physically. I was feeling so drained. Obviously, I've got two children, and they're only 2 days and 2 years apart, so quite close together. But I was doing all of the childcare, all of the housework, and just all of it. I didn't recognize myself. Who am I? Was the biggest question. And yeah, health wise, I did actually have to go to get some treatments as well because my body was just shutting down. And I had lumps and bumps everywhere. So I went to the Royal Marsden to have all of that checked out or referred there. And yeah, it was a really scary time because I was doing it on my own and juggling the children, but also going to see specialists to see what was wrong with me. And yeah, it's a real scary time, but I was just on autopilot. It was I've just got to do it. I've just got to do it. And it was a really really hard time. Even speaking about it, it's like the emotion of how did I actually cope with that. So yeah, all of what you've just said. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're extremely brave to come on and talk about your experience. And really, it must have been so exhausting and overwhelming having to
Yeah.
juggle not only a marriage with addiction, but financially and being there for your children.
Yeah.
And I know that one of your children is on the autism spectrum.
Yes.
What challenges did that bring in to an already difficult situation?
um my husband and I weren't on the same page with it. So I think that was another issue on top of everything else. And, I don't know, as a mom, you just know there's something not sort of feeling right. I think we're so intuitive as women, and I think we just go for what we feel is this is the right thing to do and get help for it. Whereas, my husband wasn't just interested in that side of things, whereas I was like, he needs help, he really needs help. So yeah, that juggling him, I think it's only when my second one arrived and saw his behavioral patterns and things, it's only when I realized more so that yeah, he's ADHD as well. So the hyperactivity firstly was just overwhelming in itself. I couldn't have a conversation with anyone, even if I was in a mum's group, or I found a lot of support from that. But so I didn't really feel I got that at home, so I did a lot of that. But then, even then, I wasn't able to relax, or I wasn't able to have a proper conversation, because one eye is always on him, and if he's going to, attack someone, or push somebody off. And so yeah, it was really
Mm.
stressful, because I couldn't understand him. I didn't have the tools to understand him.
Hmm. And that understanding and the distance that it created with your husband, do you feel that that exists more widely in the South Asian community? Do you think there's, I don't know, stigma or misunderstanding about ADHD, autism, mental health in general in the South Asian community?
100%. Yeah. I think we shy away from any sort of mental health. You say mental and it's game over. It's like, oh, and that's not right. And he's got no issues. And I think it's more what other people say rather than, right, we've got this, let's deal with it. This is our son. We've just got to. We've got to do the best we can. We love him. We want the best for him. We want him to strive and thrive, and all of that. So why are we listening to other people? I think it's a huge one, and I have spoken about it with other areas as well of radio and things like that about that. And I guess that's really helped people, but we are speaking about it more and more, so that's a positive around it. But when I was going through it, there was little or none.
Mhm.
And yeah, initially I was like, what is this? I don't understand it. But when it hits you, when you've got a child that needs that help, you're going to do everything in your power to get some sort of help, not just for him, but the parents as well.
Mhm. Yeah. And when he was diagnosed, how did you, first of all, I mean, educate yourself about the condition and then try to educate those around you, including your husband and family and friends?
So that's a real tough challenge, especially when you're on your own about this, because even my side of the family didn't understand it. It's this not being educated about it, and I'm obviously guilty of that too, because I don't know a lot about, well, I didn't know a lot about it. So yeah, we went to our specialist, the CAMS unit. Obviously worked with a school, and I was pushing it. I think that's what we need to do, is we need to push it. Doesn't matter what anybody else says, even including your own family. If you feel that you need to do that, then you do it, because that's how your child is going to get that help. Nothing to worry about. Not there is obviously a lot of stigma attached, but I didn't care about that. I just wanted my child to be, get that help and get that support, and for me too. So we were very lucky that I was actually in Hounslow at the time, so Hounslow CAMS were really good, and the school that he was in was really good as well. So we worked collectively together to get him a diagnosis, but it took a long time. They are overstretched and overworked and all of that too.
Mm.
But you've got to hang in there. It took about probably a year, maybe two, to get both of their diagnoses. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's understandable that um, you would feel that way in that sort of difficult situation.
Yeah.
But at some point, you did make the decision to leave your marriage. What was the turning point for you? What finally pushed you to take that next step?
Like I said, initially was I lost myself. I don't know who I was. I didn't like the version of myself that I was in, and I felt as though that's not me. Him and I brought the worst out of each other. And, we've all got those versions of us anyway. Like, like we can be lovely. And then, when circumstances happen, we could not handle the emotional intelligence anyway. So I got to a point where I thought, okay, this is not getting any better. One of us has got to make that decision. I know he wasn't going to. And I just felt that it was such a toxic environment. I even said to him, I am worth so much more. This is not my life. This is not the life I want to live. We have one life. I want to live to be as happy as I can. I'm not happy. We had all the materials. I mean, from the outside, you would have thought, oh yeah, the cars, the houses, the flats, everything. We built up so much together as a team. But when you're just not happy, everything just crumbles. And I thought, like, we've got all of that, and now what? Like, we're just not happy with each other. He wasn't going to say anything, and because I was doing all of the grafting with the children and just all of that. Yeah, I was exhausted, and I thought, right, well, I can do this on my own. I don't need you. And so once those thoughts started coming into my mind, I was like, right, I need an exit plan. So I'm not all about spreadsheets and things like that, but yeah, I used them and thought, right, okay, what is my plan of action? Where am I going to get that support? Where am I going to, schools and nurseries? And it was just a lot in my head. So I had to write it down. So
Hmm.
that helped. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think the turning point for me was things are not going to get any better if something doesn't change.
Right. Well, I mean, leaving is never an easy
Yeah, it's
decision,
not.
especially when you have children
It's not.
involved, but it was obviously the completely right decision for
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
Um, how did you manage the transition after leaving, and how did you start to rebuild your life personally and financially?
I would say biggest thing is the decision. You make that decision and everything I felt in my way and what I happened to me, everything just fell into place. The nurseries, the flat I found, the just everything. I mean, I was in a little bit of shock actually how smooth the transition happened for me. And I think it's all about making that decision of anything. Like, right, this is what you want to do. This is your focus. This is your vision. And it just executed so nicely for me. I just couldn't believe it. And therefore, it instilled that this is the right decision.
Hmm.
Everything just fell into place. So, yeah, it was difficult because I was just trying to juggle them, and they're still in school, and there was this transitional period where I went to my brother and my parents as well. They were living together, and there was a whole lot of other stuff going on there, and but it was like, right, okay, I've got to do it. Obviously I've spoken to my family. They're all in bits as well with, oh my god, and you've got kids. I had to hear all of that too, but at the same time, I think my parents were like, right, we trust your judgment. If you're not happy, then we'll support you in that way. But it was hard in Asian families. I don't,
Mm.
it they've got all of their friends and their community and all of that to deal with on top of me. So I did put that on them too. So, there's a little bit of guilt there too, for me, but you know, they're my parents. I'm a parent, the best I can do for my kids is support them, whatever circumstance.
Hmm. That guilt you mentioned is really interesting because, yes, it's a difficult situation and it feels like it was your decision
Yeah.
to do that and then bring everyone into it.
Yeah.
But almost it's a situation where you shouldn't feel guilt because you're making this empowering decision for you and it's going to be better for you. Do
Yes.
you feel that maybe that guilt is coming from a place of in the South Asian community, there's such a big um, kind of importance around family units and unity and staying together no matter what, keeping family issues behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Did that come into play in your
Yes.
mind? How did that affect that transition for you?
I think, look, you go into a marriage and you think that's forever. Nobody goes into it thinking you're going to split up. It just doesn't enter your brain. Why would you do it in the first place? So there's all of that to deal with. You see your parents, yeah, they're not always happy and they're not always, they've got their own issues as well and whatever. I mean, generally I think they're okay, but okay wasn't enough for me. So your role models are like that. They're friends and the community. You don't hear of it as much, and therefore it's that. Now what? You think you've got that support from them as well as in the wider community, but actually it's more of, dare I say, being ostracized because you haven't got a man in your life. And it's all of those things, because I did worry about my parents as well, of how their friends are going to receive it. And it's just layers upon layers of why why can't she just stay, she's got kids. I've had a few people say that to me, and I said, well, you're not living my life. You don't know. So noise for me is just all noise, and I don't associate with that. But there was this, yeah, I think more guilt for my parents, because they've lived that life, whereas I'm building a new one. And everybody around my friends as well, divorce is not, or separation is not, it's not normal. And just take it, be submissive and just take it. And I don't think I was built like that.
No, that's fair enough. What advice would you give to another person who is in a marriage that isn't working, that wants to leave, but is being completely held back by their thought that if they do it, their family is going to ostracize them, they're going to be shunned from their community, and that is their reasoning as to why they're not leaving a marriage?
I think that there's a lot in there. Everybody's different. Their circumstances are different. You've got a lot of emotional baggage from your past, and that's something that I've had to work on. And it's not an easy decision. You're staying in there thinking, what, shall I or shan't I, every day. There is a lot of that. But the biggest thing for me, and the advice I give even my clients as well, is you've got to focus on yourself. There's a lot of focus. You're not going to be the better person, and for if you're not working on yourself, like each day, every day, you're not going to be the best version of yourself for your children or your career. You're going to have to go out there and make your money, and and the support as well. And I think a lot of it is mindset. Like there's a lot of things and beliefs that we have been instilled whilst growing up, because they're from our parents, or our peers, or other communities. And you've got to question yourself, is that working for you? Is that working for you right now? If it's not, you need to push that aside, or change the belief pattern that we all have. And it is a lot to do with your mindset. That is number one, I would say. And I
Mm-hmm.
work with a lot of people with that.
Yeah, well, talking about your work with other people, you've rebuilt yourself, and now I understand that you're helping other women in similar situations.
Yeah.
So tell us about the work that you do to support other women going through those struggles.
I mean, like I said, I've invested in myself. That wasn't easy. I just wanted the answers, and I'm very curious. I'm a scientist as well, so there's a lot of experiments that you do with yourself as well. So I found myself a couple of mentors, actually a few mentors, worked with them, and I'm certified in two different coaching practices as well. So one with Nick Bro, which is my first one over COVID. But then I was reading a lot as well, so that sort of um, sort of guided me to him. And so I certified with him as a facilitator with the belief patterns and things. And the other person just a couple of years ago with Peter Sage. And all of those doors just keep opening for me. I'm still learning. I'm still developing, all of my skills, but the things I had to work on myself before I felt that I can help other people. So it's the doing the work. It's like the mindset, doing the work, and then, that transformation comes. But it is really empowering when you've done it and then you're helping other people do it. And that's what I get the joy out of, is with people. But I think the main thing for a lot of women in my situation is they don't know how to have fun. And I have a lot of fun. I go out and I have a lot of fun. And we lose that part of ourselves when we get married. We don't think we can do that. You can only do it with your husband. You can't do it with your friends. Then you have children and all that takes your time. But it is about just doing things that give you joy and bliss and happiness. And that's the first thing I teach people.
Amazing. Well, I mean, talking about that, having fun, having almost self-care, like
Care.
care for yourself.
Yes.
What does it look like, kind of balancing being a mother, and all the responsibilities that come with that, and creating time and space to look after yourself and to have fun and to have a life that is yours as well as your family's and your children's?
I think you've got to, first of all, believe that you deserve that time. I think I believe, and a lot of my friends who are also mums, think that your children are your first priority. Your everybody else is above you. And I had to really change that. And I think that took me a while to even get my head around, because you do put everybody else first. You don't put yourself first, because that's just not what you do. And I think as soon as I switched the hierarchy of, right, I'm here and everybody's beneath me, even my children, I've got to do that, because if I don't do that, then I'm not going to be the best version of myself for my children or for all the people around me, and to even help anybody. So self-care for me looks like, you've got to make that time. It's like, compartmentalizing your time. Everybody's got 24 hours. You make sure you prioritize what's important, and you've got to put that at the top, because if you feel good, then other people can see that you're shining your light, and people are attracted by that. So it's almost like making sure that you are, in your zone before you actually make, and all the decisions that you make as well. When you're in a happy place, you're going to make the best decisions.
Mm-hmm. And going back to talking about your son who was on the spectrum, I mean,
Yeah.
tell us where he's at now. How is he doing? What's he up to? Is everything okay?
So when I left, they were 4.5. So my elder one was 4.5, and my little baby was 2.5. Now they're 20 and 18. So adults. Can't believe that. My elder son, who has got the double diagnosis, he surprises me every day. And honestly, I sometimes have to pinch myself that what is he doing with his life? And it's great. And he's at university, he's at Bristol University,
Amazing.
which I didn't think, honestly, it's maybe a little bit of like, uh, my mindset as well, of, oh God, a little bit of worry of what he's going to do, but actually not that much. He leads me. This is how my parenting works. So I do help other parents in that sense as well. He leads me, and this is what he wanted to do, and he focuses on things because that's how his brain is. But there's nothing wrong with him. He just sees the world very differently to me. So anything that I can solve, I ask him, and he went, yeah, I'll do that, and he's done it. And I'm thinking, oh my God. So he is now thriving at university, his second year, and he's got himself a girlfriend. I'm just in awe of how much what he's done, and where he's at. I mean, with all of the things that I had to go through, because I had to educate myself with how to manage him. It's not the same as my younger one, so we've had to work really hard together. For me especially, to understand and let go of some of the things that Asian parents and families have to, is education. I didn't even push him to go to university. This is his decision. I was quite happy for him to, do whatever. It wasn't my thing. Whereas I think my peers, my friends, in the Asian community were very much like, no, 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 university education, which is what I got. I don't, I don't want to do that. I want him to be happy. So all the things that I've learned in building myself and personal development that I've done reflects on how my children are now.
Well, it sounds like you should be extremely proud of yourself because, I mean, seems to be thriving, which is great.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what do you hope for your children's future, and how do you envision your family dynamic evolving as your kids grow older?
So I don't think I live a very traditional life. I don't have a traditional family sort of setup. My parents are half the time in India and half the time here. My brother lives an hour and a half away from me. So I don't have a lot of that. I built my environment, and your environment is so important because that's where all your growth and the people that you hang around with is so important. So I do have like my own group of friends that I do certain things with, but I think it's more of obviously I want my relationship with my kids, and I've got a good relationship with them, and I want to maintain that. I want to continue that, but I'm not a pushy parent. Like I say, they guide me. There are obviously boundaries. We weren't taught that there are boundaries with any relationship you have. Um, they have a great relationship with their dad, and dare to say I do as well. And we're friends, and we and we go out as a four. We've been doing that for a while, but now understanding more of myself and him, we have got a good relationship there, and you can get to that. Like you're co-parenting. They're half of him, so I. I want all of that for them because if they see mum and dad communicating in a very emotionally intelligent way, and forgiving all of that stuff. You're not actually forgiving him; you're forgiving yourself. And this is how I feel with my relationship with their dad. So we've been co-parenting for so obviously still, and we share like birthdays and milestones and things like that together. And I have a relationship with his side of the family, minimal, but I do. So I want to continue that for them, and I just want them to be happy. To be honest, they can make all the decisions. I've made decisions based on my upbringing, but I just want them to make their own decisions. Yeah, you're not always going to get it right. Yeah, it's just life, right? So just got to be there for them whenever they fall. So
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing, really.
Well, yeah, that's super inspiring and great that you've managed to keep the family unit almost there or have a somewhat of a relationship with
It's
him.
important.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure both of your kids, I mean, love that. And it's not always achievable for everyone,
No.
though. I mean, what advice would you give to someone who has split from their marriage and is finding it difficult to reconnect to that co-parenting concept?
I think you need to, and this is again what I did, is put your stuff, toxic stuff to the side. And it is, again, I know I've said it a few times, it's mindset. It's a lot of that mindset, and you work on yourself and don't be the victim. Don't, it's easy for me to say because that's how I felt like, oh, why me? Why me? Why is it happening to me? Well, why don't you switch that and think, okay, well, these things happen. Where's the growth in that? What am I learning from this? This happened for a reason. What am I going to learn from that so it doesn't happen to me again?
Sure. Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful and empowering advice. And it's really inspiring to hear how your journey's developed, how you went from kind of a marriage that went down the hill and then singularly rebuilding yourself and your finance and managing to grow up two amazing boys.
Well,
And
thanks.
yeah,
Thank you.
let's talk a bit about your personal journey. Maybe if you could think of a couple of examples and paint the picture a bit of almost the most difficult moments you've faced as a single parent?
Okay. Wow, there's a few. I mean, there's quite a few that I can probably think of. I think probably the main thing is I'm doing the majority of the childcare, and obviously I will be, but I think it's more of I'm the mom and the dad for most of their time with me. I did set something in place for them visiting their father every other weekend, and I think we all needed that consistency as well. So that was really difficult initially because I didn't know how to navigate that. And again, that landed on me because this is what I wanted. So I was the decision maker. Yes, you can look at it like, he could have done more and supported me in there, but it was almost like he switched off and I just had to take over. And it was forced in that direction. So yeah, I found that hard navigating, uh, you know, childcare. I wanted them to have their time with their dad, but more importantly, I wanted that time for myself. And I think that's really important because you're on the go all the time. You're working. You've got two little boys, who need one needs more, and I found that really hard, especially when they were little, and especially when I was going through that. I would say the second thing was his diagnosis. That took a long time, and we had to fix one thing before fixing another, and that's where he got his double diagnosis when he was probably about 9 or 7, something like that. But yeah, like I've been living with that and fighting actually for him. That was difficult on my own because nobody understood that. It's almost like you're sort of fighting on a feeling. No, something's not right, and it's almost like validating your own feelings of no, I believe there's something, and nobody else is supporting you on that because they don't understand it. And having that education, we were sent to um, school, well, not school, but courses and things, just to understand him. And I forced his dad to come with us, and then he recognized that he's got some of those traits as well. So that was hard, like really sort of convincing and negotiating, and that's why I'm in business development now. So, those skills really help, just pushing that just to get the support that he needed. So I'm glad I did that on my own. And once I got that, it was then translating all of that in the languages and, so that my parents could understand as well, because they're not fluent in English either. And obviously to his family and bringing all that paperwork together. Luckily, they had things in the languages as well, so I just gave it to them, have a read and what you think. And but it was being open and honest about how I'm feeling, but also the communication. So I would say that diagnosis, financially I was drained. So financially building that up, I just believed in myself I can do better. And I think I'm always this sort of I've got to, and I've always wanted to as well. So I know I can do better. I took jobs which were, I did feel like, this is just so beneath me, but I took them because I needed to support my family. And then as soon as I got into secondary school, it was right, I'm going to concentrate on my career. So yeah, then I went for it. So
Mm.
I'm in a very good position now.
Well, that's amazing. Amazing to hear. Um, Thinking about that comment you made about being both mum and dad, when raising two boys, how did you? I mean, I guess people are always saying boys need their parental figure, they need to be raised up by other men. How did you bond with them in a way that they felt they had both mum and dad together with you bringing them up?
I did a lot of reading. There's a great book, Raising Boys, by Steve Biddulph. So yeah, I think we can all do that. Like, there's a lot of stuff out there. And I think if you are curious and you want to do the best you can, and if you've got that drive, and you know, and not everyone is going to do that. Like I get that, not everybody's the same, but I just had this inner sort of drive of I'm I've got boys, yes. Do they need their father? I think they just need an emotionally safe parent. That's what they need. That whether it's a male or a female, yeah, we can offer different things. And now, they get something different from their dad and they get something different from me. But when you are faced with that, I know it was my decision as well, and I know I have to live with that and live with the decisions I make for my children as well. Yeah, we've had battles of like, oh, you should have stayed with dad, or all of that, like but you've got to stay grounded and sound in what you believe. And for me, it was my relationship with them. They tell me everything, like everything, probably things I would never speak to my parents about, but they tell me everything, and which is lovely because that's what I wanted. Them to be me, to be the first person they tell, rather than I'm telling a friend, which is what I did because I didn't think my parents would understand the things I was going through. So yeah, I've built a safe place for them to do that, and that was just by facing my demons and facing my belief patterns and things that I had about that, and just going with it. But yeah, I did a lot of reading. I love reading and
Mm.
courses, and that is just the way my genetic makeup is, I think. So I am going to win.
Absolutely. We love a strong, empowered woman. um, you mentioned there kind of conversations or arguments coming up with your children
Yeah,
about them thinking you should have stayed with dad,
yeah,
saying that sort of thing.
yeah.
I just wonder how did you tell them at the time that you were leaving and when they were growing up? What did you say to them, or how did you help them understand the split and the living separately? And what was their understanding of your guys' breakup?
So they were really little when they didn't have that intelligence then to actually understand. So it was more of, I think my younger one just doesn't know any different. Whereas my older one started to build this sort of like, oh, this is mom and dad and a house, we live in this house and, all of that. So he had more questions. And obviously, with all of his view of the world, which I didn't understand, he was just coming at me, which is fine. I think I just dealt with that, not as, again, a victim. I've made that decision, so I'm going to live with that. I am going to get questions. Of course I am, from everyone, not just them. And yeah, sometimes I ignore it, sometimes I'll answer it. I'm not perfect. And I quickly established that no one's perfect, and I'm certainly not. But do I want to answer that? Yeah, I'll answer it. If I don't want to answer it, I won't. And I think slowly, I've told them things that when they asked me and when they were curious, but not sort of like, oh, your dad. I mean, don't get me wrong. Hey, I've had my bad days, and I have, berated him, in front of them, and then I've taken it all back. But it's I was feeling hurt, and all of that. It wasn't easy leaving that, and there was this sort of emotional thing I had still with him, and I explained all of that to him as well. That yeah, it wasn't my, I didn't want to, but I felt I had to for my sanity. I think, and so that's how I was telling the children as well. I did it for myself, yes, 100%. But I also wanted you to have a safe and not a toxic environment either. And they're getting it slowly but surely. They did get it slowly but surely. And then I just drip feed, because they're not, they're growing up and they've got different sort of questions and, so that's how we established, I wouldn't completely ignore them because that's not fair.
Mm.
Um, I'm very open and honest. I think communication is such a big key for everything. And I try my best to communicate at I feel the right time for them.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, it got me thinking that over the time from the period that you did break up and leave the marriage to now, I just wonder if you felt there's been a shift or a difference in society's exception of single parent families. Would you say society has any way become more open-minded to it or more catered to single parent families?
I think there is a lot more openness. I do hear a lot more, and there is more people that are single parents in our community. It's almost like, right, not the lack of trying, because I think we're all triers. It's like
Mm.
we want to make it work. It's not like, oh, I don't like you anymore and off we go. It's a really big decision, and you don't take it lightly. It's not a thing that you would, like, oh my God, I'm breaking up my marriage. I'm taking the kids away from their children, from their dad and their family, and there's a lot. It's huge. So it's not taken lightly, but I think we are speaking about it more. We are speaking about the fact that we're not going to be taken for granted, or we're not going to be taken as, as abuse, or, that toxicity. We know better. We're much more intelligent about it now than we ever were. And especially this generation, because I think the past generations, they just did what they did. And that's okay. That's what they did. But that doesn't mean that you have to repeat that pattern. We're here to, change things. We're always evolving. Why are we not evolving more and more about this? And it happens. It's sad. Yes, we don't want to do that. But, circumstances are, it's okay to want something different. It's okay to, you know, the reason, you have valid reasons of why you want to do that. I just think we are so much better at communicating about it now than we ever were. So yeah, it's great. It's good. We are talking about it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I think your story is so beautiful and empowering. All of the advice you've given, I'm sure lots of people will be listening to and benefiting from hugely.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Single and Strong. Marla's story reminds us that no matter how difficult the journey may seem, there is always the possibility for transformation, healing, and success. If you're a single parent or know someone who might need support, please remember you are not alone. Don't forget to share this episode and join us next time as we continue to share stories that empower and uplift. Until then, take care and keep strong.